Okay, let's talk more about ammunition. Firstly, let me explain this. Tough one, this one. You'll see that this conversation, when we talk about ballistics and all sorts, lots of arguments happen because there's a lot of variables. There's what we call internal ballistics, basically means what is happening to the bullet when it's inside the gun, inside the barrel. Then there's external ballistics, what happens to the bullet when it's outside the gun after you've shot it. And because of this, there's a lot of variables. The material used in the gun, in the bullet, what type of bullet, what type of casing, what was the propellant used. Hey man, I can carry on and on and on about internal ballistics. I can also carry on about external ballistics. What happens to this? This material reacts like this in air. If it was raining, this happens. If it was sunny, this happens. If it was hot, this happens. Lots to argue about. But for simple sake, for just to understand, for base, just to have a good understanding, this is how basically I understand this. I'm going to explain first how a hollow point works. A hollow point basically works because it is hollow at its point, right? So what basically means is that it's designed to be a much more deadly round. How? As it hits the material, on impact, it needs a particular speed, but on impact, it's supposed, as it hits, to open up like a flower. And it opening up like a flower like this, because of the increased surface area as it moves through the material, it can damage more things. And also because of it opening up like a flower, as if it's got fingers, it's also going to be scratching and cutting sorts of things as it moves through. So that is what it was designed for. The third thing it was designed for, because of it opening up like a flower and the surface area that it has as it moves through the material, it is actually making it slow down and trying to make it stop inside the subject of whatever you are shooting. So as not to penetrate more to shoot something else that you didn't want to shoot. So hence a safer round, but a deadlier round nonetheless. So that it was what it was designed for. The next thing that you need to understand is 115 grain, 124 grain, and 147 grain. What does that mean? It means the weight of the bullet. The bullet is the only thing that leaves the barrel. Most people still call this a bullet. No, it's a round or a cartridge. The bullet is the tip. As you can see, hollow point, hollow at its point. So that's what basically that means. So what does that mean for you and your pistol size barrel and all sorts? So a couple of things you need to understand. The lighter the bullet is, a 115 grain is a much lighter bullet, weighs less. It'll travel faster. Doesn't matter what barrel it's in. A lighter bullet will always travel faster. The next thing that you need to understand is the longer the bullet spends inside of the barrel as it travels, the longer it spends, the more faster and more accurate the bullet will be. If you look inside of your barrel, you'll start to see like rifling. That rifling is there for that particular reason, to give the bullet spin, and in giving it that spin, it's also giving it accuracy and it going faster. You'll hear when we start talking about rifles, I'll start talking about like, oh, what is your ratio of your rifle? 1.8, 1 to 8, or 1 to 9, whatever. Basically means 1 to 8, 8 times the bullet will spin before it leaves the barrel. So then what does it mean for you to understand? I carry a 3 series size gun for carry, concealed carry. So it's a compact gun. If you want to carry a larger gun, that will be a 5 series kind of gun, right? So what's the difference here? The difference is basically the barrel size. Remember, the longer the barrel, the bullet spins inside of the barrel, the faster and more accurate the bullet will be. So let's go through it. When I did this test, I was using a 16-inch gel about that big, and I shot a 115 grain bullet, hollow point, and it went right through. Then I shot a 124 grain bullet, and then it basically stopped like sort of the third of the place. And then I shot a 147 grain, and the 147 grain also went right through. So then what bullet then to use for me for my 3 series size of gun? It's obviously the 124 grain. But what is actually happening so that you can understand? Remember, different materials, different variables, different all of these things will make the bullet travel differently inside the material. So this is what you basically need to understand. With a mid-size, a compact gun, a 3 series gun, 115, the bullet is too fast. That is why it's going through. What basically is happening is this. It opens, right? And it still travels because it's got a lot of energy behind it. So it will penetrate and also go through. Again, material, variables. But the 124 I find more consistent with those rounds, especially in my size of pistol, that it goes through and it stays inside this gel. Please do yourself a favor, go watch YouTube, go watch most of these ballistic tests, and you'll start to understand what I'm talking about. And then if I shoot a 147 grain, the 147 grain, when you take the bullet out, you start to realize it doesn't open up completely because, again, the bullet is heavy and it's traveling at a much slower pace. So because it's traveling at a much slower pace, it doesn't open up. On impact, it literally does this. And it stays like this instead of the other bullets that open up completely. Because it stays like this, it will travel through the material, penetrate, and come out the other side. Also, same thing. So then you're going to be asking me, okay, Sid, what is the difference here, what I'm talking about? Then you need to understand the speed of the bullets. Maybe I should have explained this at the top, but anyway. In my gun, a 115 grain, as I said, goes right through. 147 grain stops. 124 grain stops. The 147 grain also goes right through. If I'm using my gun and I'm now judging them and I'm calculating the speed as they go through the tachometer, is this. The 115 grain sits at around 1,200 and something feet per second. Faster bullet because it weighs less. 124 grain sits at around 1,000 or 1,001 something, so much slower feet per second. So then the 147 grain then sits at like 980 feet per second. So now you can see the variation is like 180, sometimes even like 40 feet per second. But in that variation, it means that the bullet is not traveling fast enough so that when it hits the material, it opens up like a flower and then it can stop inside the material. So then most people then want to go, okay, I want to put my 147 grain in a subcompact, a smaller gun, a 1 series or even a 2 series size gun. Then I go, you're going to get the same thing. Go look at YouTube again. You'll see the guys that shoot with very, very tiny, small guns and then put a 147 grain, it does exactly the same thing. It goes right through the gel because, again, it doesn't have enough speed so that when it hits the material on impact, it opens up completely like a flower. It literally opens up about that much and still travels right through the material. So it penetrates and it goes right through and it can hit something else afterwards. So pay attention to how large your barrel is and what grain you are using because of this. So if you are using a full-size pistol, like a 5 series A6 E-class kind of size of pistol, then that pistol should only be using 147 grain, especially with hollow points, because then the bullet is going to be traveling faster. 2 reasons. 1, bigger gun, because of the barrel size, is going to be traveling faster. That means it's going to be hitting the material in a correct way, opens up and stops inside. If you have a lesser size gun, like my size, a 3 series or C-class or even an A4 size gun, that basically means that then you need to be using a 124 grain. If you're using a subcompact or even a smaller gun, 1 series, 2 series kind of size gun, then please look at using a 115 grain size bullet or weight bullet. Basically, that's that about the weight and the bullets. What else have I left out? Signs with this. Oh yeah, keep strapped.